Now, you met Keith Whelan on this programme some weeks ago, and at the time he was preparing to embark on a rowing adventure across the Indian Ocean. Now, not alone that, he was planning to do it with no clothes on. Hence, the Athy native earned the nickname the Naked Adventurer. But despite coming agonisingly close to completing the challenge, Mother Nature had other ideas. But thankfully, Keith is okay, and he has taken time to talk to us live from Australia this morning. So please allow for a slight delay on the line. Keith, you're very welcome to the programme.
Will, hi, good morning, how are you?
So what happened?
Yeah, you've described it. Nature happened. At least I think it was nature. I was obviously en route across to Mauritius in my 23-foot ocean rowing boat, and doing nicely after quite a few weather setbacks to begin with. I was making good progress, and had good weather for the rest of the week, which would have been great. It would have led to a pretty significant mileage this week, which would have been fantastic. And but obviously a couple of nights ago, I was sleeping, and obviously when you're on an ocean rowing boat, sleep is a luxury at times. And even when you do sleep, you sleep very lightly. And during the night, every night, you obviously get hit with big waves, and you kind of become accustomed to it, and you can hear them coming, and you brace yourself for the impact of...
What qualifies as a big wave, Keith, by the way? How big would the wave be?
The biggest wave I've seen out there was probably around, I'd guess, between 40 and 50 feet.
Wow.
So, it's pretty scary, and you feel very insignificant out there, and you are very insignificant out there, and it gives you a great appreciation for... maybe how insignificant we all are on the planet. So yeah, I mean, I was as I said, just dozing off, and you get interrupted with sleep during the night with the radio, VHF radio, if there's ships nearby, or the AIS system, which obviously alerts me to big ships if they come near me, and so they don't run me over. But suddenly I got very much woken up by what can only be described as a car crash impact, which threw me from one side of the cabin to the other. And in the process of doing that, I cut my head on a bolt inside the boat. It would be quite an achievement to hit that exact spot if you tried. But for some reason, my head connected exactly with that spot, and it caused a nice 3.5-inch laceration down the top of my head.
Gosh.
Which bled quite badly. Yeah,
so were you able to tend to the wound yourself?
It was very much an unexpected wake-up call. Sorry, say that again?
Were you able to tend to the wound yourself to some extent?
Yeah, I mean, weirdly, I didn't even realise that I had been cut until probably 5-10 minutes after it happened, which sounds a bit bizarre, but my initial reaction was, my God, I've been hit by a ship. Such was the force of the impact. So I literally got myself together, went outside straight away to look to see if there was a ship out there, and if it had been a ship, what sort of damage it had done to the boat, and was it sinking. And obviously this is the middle of the night as well, and there's quite a big swell out in the ocean, so it adds a different dimension to everything when it's nighttime. And certainly the fear factor involved in being totally alone in the middle of an ocean, and not knowing what's happening.
Sure.
So
I can't imagine what your adrenaline level or your heart rate was like at that moment.
Yeah, I can describe. Obviously, there was a lot of expletives coming from my mouth at the time. You can appreciate that the level of adrenaline is huge, but you know, I guess the surprising thing is that as a human, you do tend to well, certainly I did all the right things, which is good to know that you're still able to cope with that level of pressure. And I checked everything on the boat, made sure everything was right, and then when I went back inside to obviously see the mess that was left inside the cabin, because everything had just gotten thrown everywhere. Water had come in through the water maker inlet pipe, which means that my mattress and everything was soaking wet, and it was only just I looked down and my legs were covered in blood, and my hands were, and I couldn't figure out, where it was coming from, and I was putting my hand on my head and thinking I was sweating, and because it felt quite wet, and put my hand on my head and it was covered in blood. So went looking for a mirror and couldn't find one because that had been smashed in the impact. So the next best thing was to take out my video camera, video the top of my head, take out the SIM card or the memory card and put it in my laptop and have a look at what the damage was.
Well, that must have given you a fright in itself to see a 3-inch gash on your forehead.
Yeah, exactly, and it was right at the top of my head as well, so I couldn't see it properly or even do anything with it. I tried using a mixture of kind of CDs and everything to try and see it without the video camera, but the video camera was the only way. So given the location of where it was, obviously my first thing was to try and stop the bleeding, which I managed to slow it down and stop it reasonably well. I think the thing with head wounds is that unless they're terribly serious, they do tend to bleed quite quickly for a few minutes, but then they stop reasonably quickly. So it did stop. Then I put a call out to my support guy in the UK and told him what happened, and said that, after looking at it, that it would need probably at least 15 to 20 stitches or to be glued or whatever the case would be, based on how it looked. And obviously I knew I wouldn't be able to do that myself, and with another 2.5 months of my journey to come, it's the fear involved in terms of getting an infection or something and then being in the middle of an ocean. Obviously the risk was too great, so it just became apparent that it would be possibly the end of my journey for now. I called my support guy, and we initiated obviously a contact with authorities here in Australia, and they helped out. We tried to get a fishing boat initially to come and tow me back in.
How far from help were you at this stage?
I was probably about 80 miles away from the Abrolhos Islands in the Indian Ocean. So a good long time. It would take quite a few hours for a ship to get to me. There was no ship showing up on my system as being nearby. I put out what they call a pan call on the VHF radio in the hope somebody might hear it, which is a medical emergency call on there. There was no response, but actually, incidentally, I found out since that the ship that did come and help me had heard the call vaguely, but couldn't make out my call sign or where it was coming from. But and I didn't obviously get their response. But as I said, they were contacted by the police in Australia, and the ship was actually close by, so they came by. It's a ship called Suka, which is a Japanese ship on its way to Bunbury in Australia.
I know we're men, and men never get, a fright, but at the same time, you're here in the middle of the Indian Ocean. You think perhaps a ship struck your boat. You suffer a head injury, you've blood pouring down all the way to your legs and so on. I imagine fear and isolation must have crept in, and would you think twice before going out again because of that?
No, I just might wear a helmet when I'm sleeping next time.
Okay, good answer.
Of course, it's terrifying. The chance, the idea that maybe you can't stop the bleeding, maybe there's something serious wrong, maybe you've cracked your skull, maybe you've done all these things. What if you go unconscious? Of course you think of all those things, and to say anything else it would be lying, and so you do think the worst, but at the same time you have to get on with things and get things done and organise stuff, because there's no one else there to help you, so you have to go and get on the phone and get on the radio and try and sort out the cabin and make it comfortable again, so that because you're going to have potentially a long wait. So I made the calls I needed to make, and then went about trying to sort out the cabin. This, by the way, all in the middle of an ocean that has a big swell, so you're getting thrown around all the time inside while this is happening. And obviously you can't stand up inside my boat, so you're kind of crawling around. So everything is more challenging. The simplest things become more challenging when you're at sea. Yeah,
to say the least.
And in terms of thinking about it again, no, I think it's something that I would still do, and I don't think I would do anything differently. It's just one of those things that can happen. It's a dangerous environment, and it's one of those freak occurrences that my head happened to hit that exact point that could have caused a problem, and it did. And yeah, it's unfortunate. It's gutting. It's 2 years of my life that I've invested into this, and everyone who knows me is invested in with me, I guess, and bought into what I was doing, and sponsors and my charity and everything else. So
I have a feeling you're probably going
it's
to
a big
remove
thing.
that bolt and keep it as a souvenir and put it somewhere that you can throw darts at it or something.
No, absolutely not. That boat is going to be fixed, and with a view to it going back on the ocean.
Yeah, no, but the offending bolt
and,
is what I was getting at.
Oh, yeah, the boat. Yeah, sorry, I thought you said boat. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll put it somewhere nicely and yeah, swear at it from time to time. But yeah, no, it's one of those things. But you know, the help that I received from the ship was outstanding, and they were with me within an hour. Once they initiated contact, so they were probably around 25, 30 miles away from me.
Good.
And
what's the plan now,
actual,
Keith? Obviously you have to recover, and for instance, did you need the 15 stitches in the end, or was the wound as severe as it first appeared?
No, it wasn't. It didn't need stitches, but it was just glued back together, so it's fine now. I've got a nice shaved head now, which is the first time I've had one in my life, so I look dramatically different to anyone who sees me, probably in the future, with a rather nice gash down the front of my head as well. So, but it certainly was the case that I made the right decision, and I'm happy that I did make the right decision. And unfortunately, in the process of obviously getting the boat on board the ship in the swell that was out there, a lot of things got damaged on the boat trying to get it onto the ship. I was nearly one of those things as the boat capsized right beside the ship when it hit the ship, and I ended up under the water and getting pushed up against the hull of this massive 200-meter cargo ship, and then I had to climb a nice rope ladder, 40 feet up the side of this boat in a big swell at sea. So, even the rescue effort was pretty traumatic and pretty full on,
You might have the makings of a movie here, you wouldn't know.
I might have done how they got to the other side, but...
Well, look, you can always restart again.
Sometime in the future.
Keith, it's been great having you on the programme. Thank you very much for taking our call, and we're all glad you're